Welcome back, friends and new friends, to the Adventure Tech Garage YouTube channel. Over here working on the 100 Series Cruiser and some new developments for the garage here I want to talk to you guys about. Here in Salt Lake City, where I'm renting this space, this garage space, I have big changes coming because I'm going to have to move all of these things. With my main line of work, my main job, I'm going to be relocating back out to eastern Utah. My residence will remain there in Ogden, but I'll be spending a week at a time once again back out in near Vernal. So what that means is everything that's in here, I've got about 40 days probably before I'm going to have it all moved and relocated. Trying to find a good spot that's going to work to do work in, but have some alternative types of solutions in the works. Now, I want to tell you about what my plan is for the Land Cruiser here, so that these are the things I need to get done before I get this place tore down and moved out of here. The 100 Series, the big move, things I need to get done before and things I need to get done after. Right now, most pressing are the T-case seals and bearings, which is in the works right over there right now. Got all the seals for it, but today I finally decided to spring for another $100 in bearings for the output bearings. So while I'm in there, at least it's gonna get new bearings. So that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 some odd dollars to get the parts necessary for that. So that's priority number one. Another $260 for replacement front shocks, which I'm going to talk to you guys about here in just a minute. Some of the discoveries and explorations, what we're finding out about shock droop here on the 100 Series Land Cruiser. Before I leave the garage here, I want to get the wheel spacers ironed out to include trimming of the wheel wells, trimming back the rock sliders and so forth, and hopefully getting the steering rack installed. I have a brand new OEM Toyota $450 some odd steering rack. And if I can get all those major mechanicals knocked out here before I have to pull this truck out of the garage, that will be a major win. Now, once I get to the new location, I will have the ability to work on some of these other things. The sunroof. The sunroof is kind of an ordeal, actually. The sunroof, I began tearing it apart about a year ago, looking at seeing what the problem was and figured out what the problem is. And now I've just got to fix it. So if you got mechanical sunroof problems, you might be interested in that video if I can actually get that thing together. Okay, I'm gonna get the sunroof functioning once again, because right now the sunroof almost closes and seals fully up, but it just doesn't quite fully seal. So what does that mean? If snow packs on top of it, it's just draining down into the sunroof area, not into the interior seats and stuff, but into the drain lines that go down. And what they do is, I don't know if they're clogged or whatever, but it's causing the interior carpet over by the passenger floorboard to get saturated with water. So all sorts of fun there. We're going to go ahead and remove all the seats and pull all the carpet out and kind of assess whether or not we're going to clean it. At a minimum, we're going to clean it, shampoo it, probably car wash it, pressure wash it a multitude of times if we even decide to put it back in, or look at some other options about interior, lining the interior and whatnot. Okay, while I'm at it, if I can spring for the cash to get some new replacement leather on the seats up front, that's the plan, or at least some heavy-duty seat covers. At this point, I'm planning to not even reinstall the second row seat. I've been without the third row seat here for quite a while, and so the second row is probably going to be a thing of the past in this truck. And we're going to begin working on the platform, which I didn't even add to this list. But while we have the interior kind of tore apart, we're going to put it in a big old electrical distribution power bank, something like this. Oh, you can't see it. It's all dark. Something like that into the back to manage power and monitor power back there for the refrigerator and all the other power outlet necessities. And then hopefully we'll get to the dual battery installation. So that's kind of the latest and greatest plan. Yeah, it's just a new development here in the last week or so. It's a decision on my part to move back to where I was working before at my job while I wait for a position to open up in my hometown. So I work in Salt Lake City, and the commute up there between the two is about an hour each way, which is 7 days in a row, and then I have 7 off. During 7 days on, it's just a total bear, and just the workload has just reached a breaking point. So we're gonna move back to kind of a plan B. And while it's a little bit unnerving or kind of a little bit sad to be making such a big change, especially when I just got this garage settled up here, who knows, maybe I'll have something a little bit better out there. Could be something a heck of a lot better. So if you're new here to the channel, it's probably pretty obvious that we're just on the getting things up and running, man. We're just taking off. So man, if you stick around for a year or two, you might see some legitimate shop develop before your very eyes. So if you are new, that's cool. Encourage you to subscribe, and I do appreciate each one of you guys that are subscribing. Kind of approaching 1,000, so that's gonna be a big goal, big push. So anyway, check it out. If you haven't checked out the Instagram channel, it's Adventure Tech. And anyway, so if you're interested, I'm gonna show you what we're learning about the shocks situation here, which is a follow-on to the Baja trip damage report that I kicked out earlier in the week. So here we go, let's talk about the shocks. Okay, so check it out. I just removed this here bump stop. So if you haven't checked out the video on what happened down in Baja with why I had to remove this shock, go check that out and it'll explain everything. But as kind of a band-aid measure to get me home, Dave was kind enough to allow me to pull off one of his big bump stops and have it on my truck so that I could get home on that, and that would at least help manage the, you could say, wheel up travel from bottoming out. So what we're going to look at here today real quick is just kind of how the limitations of the shock prevent full downward travel. Okay, so check it out before we move on from this, but that is the factory bump stop. Kind of teeny little guy, steel with rubber on it. These big old things are super nice in comparison, obviously. Now, there's a company which I've come to discover, I guess it's called Timbren, and those things for a set of 2, and you really should install 4, or you could install 4 on your truck. A set of 2 is $260, I think. So there are some alternative brands which I'm kind of exploring, but I do intend to get those installed on here. And so conveniently, the replacements just are of the same exact thread. Thread that thing out with a big ass wrench, and then you get yourself a nice Allen wrench, is what it came with, I believe. Okay, and so it installs right there. So you can see how much up travel from full droop it's going to have before it contacts that. Now what I can say is practically on the way home, it was almost resting on it the whole way home when I resorted to lowering the torsion bars back down quite a bit. Okay, so the thing we're going to look at right quick is, if you remove your shock, what is limiting your down travel, and is it going to wreck your CV axles? You can see the remnants of the shock. So I'm going to take the tire and wheel off here in a minute, and then take the grinder to that bolt, in between here, and get rid of that so that I'll be ready to install the new Dobinson shocks. Okay, these are going to be the we'll talk about the shocks here in a minute, but as you can see, when you remove your shock, the only thing that's limiting your down travel, as far as I can tell, is that contact right there. So that's not ideal. And these are, in fact, these are the SPC upper control arms. And they're probably about 3 years old now, I guess. If you do get a set of these, I highly advise that you paint. Don't don't just put clear coat on like I did, or even black spray paint on. Put some heavy duty paint on the hardware up there because they will rust on you. Which is kind of a shame. What does that mean? It means that if you remove your shock, which is your limiting factor, okay. Woo! Having all sorts of fun sounds in there. What in the fuck? Oh, it's just because I have the drive shaft uninstalled because of the transmission. Good hell. Okay, the big concern is, well, if I have to remove my shock, what's going to limit my down travel, and is it going to allow for the joint to bind up, the CV joint to bind up? As best I can tell, it does not allow the CV joint to, well, it might be binding a little bit, but it's not causing the ball joints, the balls and so forth, to be in danger of popping out. At least it doesn't feel that way. Okay? Now, the only other real question we have is, well, if my shock isn't installed, how much down travel do I have when it's resting on that upper control arm onto the frame structure there? So I'm just going to measure from opening of the wheel well about as centered as I can get, and I'm showing about 25 and 5/16. 25 and 5/16 of an inch down travel. So what we really need to measure is that's about 19 and 3/8 at full droop. So I'm gonna have to measure the Dobinsons or look up the specs for that. But what we were trying to determine is if when I installed the Dobinson shocks, which are the solution in this case to wanting a little bit higher stance setting on the torsion bars. By doing that, how do I explain this? 19 and 5/16 from there to there at full droop. Now, when I get the new shocks here, we're going to measure that and compare the travel and see where the limitation is going to be with the new shocks. But from what I understand, the Dobinsons are there to allow for 3 inches plus. I better just look up the specs before I tell you. But so stay tuned on that. Now, what we're going to do right quick here is, you can see that goddamn bolt right there was just about a total showstopper. If I hadn't taken my hacksaw with me, then we would have been assed out for sure. So let's see if I can pop that bolt free without wrecking my CV boot there. There we go. Slight amount of protection. Now you just don't want to put a nick in your freaking boot. This is the 3rd set of axles this truck has had. In fact, the original one, the next one I installed, and this is the 3rd set of CV axles. What I did just order was the Cruiser, what is it called? Cruiser Garage clamps, which are going to resolve this whole grease slinging problem. Because again, this set of axles is not even that old. And it's caused grease slinging problems all over the damn place. All right, let's get this bolt hacked out of here. Okay, anytime you're dealing with flying sparks and rubber, it's probably good to have a bucket of water nearby. you go. One part off. Well, there you have it. What an absolute pain in the ass. I guess if you change your shocks more than once every 8 years, you probably won't have to contend with such a disaster. Anyway, there we go. We're freed up so we can install the new ones.